Once I got in the industry and I was doing commercials and I'm working all the time, I'm like, I really want to learn another craft. I want to learn something else. I want to learn another business. I want to make money in another business because I got the time in the film industry. And I knew that the film industry had given me a lot of get it factor, a lot of like, I can find my way in any business. Okay. So now I bought and sold a laser hair removal clinic. I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't want to like zap people's legs and stuff. So now I'm like, okay, I want to learn real estate investing. So I'm like, okay, I started taking these classes for real estate, and I'm with all these other investors, and they're all buying and selling, all about chasing foreclosures and trustee sales and stuff like that. And I'm just like, well, what can I do that would be a different angle on this? What can I learn that other people um, they're not thinking about? Because everybody's like foreclosures, and being bird dogs. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to learn something that gives me the inside knowledge that it's kind of hard to learn, but once I learn it, I've got something. And I'm like, non-performing assets, non-performing mortgages. I'm like, non-performing stuff, working with notes and mortgages, finding that stuff, knowing how amortization, how it works, how to make money with it, that will give me a different angle than everybody else. So I'm telling you, all these people in my classes, nobody was thinking this way. They're all chasing. Oh my God, how'd they find that? Oh, how'd you do that deal? Oh, how'd you find that? What'd you say to the seller? How'd you get this? How'd you advertise? And I'm just like, okay, I want to learn non-performing stuff. So I went to this class that this guy taught that was about buying non-performing mortgages from banks. Perfect. And his name is Eddie Speed, and he was in Texas. And he had a class, so Joe and I flew to Texas, and we went to this hotel, and we're learning, and I'm taking notes, and we got the workbook, and it's in class person. And I'm just like, I've got this identity, like I am a shark in the fucking feeding frenzy. Whatever it is that I'm going to get into, I am going to stomp all over it. I'm going to tear it apart. So during class, I'm just like, hey, back, asking questions all the time. Now, I am not the smartest person. I'm just not. But I am the most determined person because I say I am. I've created that part of me. Okay. So I'm like, I'm hungry. So I'm just like asking questions all the time. He's like, okay, this person's getting a little bit annoying, but I don't care. I need the information. Anyway, then it's like we're sitting in the hotel lobby, and Eddie Speed is like, okay, we're going to do like have some drinks and have a group conversation. Who's got questions? And I just pull my chair right in front of him. I'm sitting right in front of him, knee to knee, and I just start hammering him with questions. How do you find the notes? Which banks? How'd you meet those people? And I'm just like asking him. He's like, Janet, you are just like way too. He's like, you are. What did he say? He's like, you are way too aggressive. That's what he goes. Janet, you are way too aggressive. You He's like, you're going to get out there and they are going to eat you alive. These banks are going to eat you alive. And I'm just like, okay, could be the case, but and I ask another question, another question, another question. And I'm just annoying the crap out of him. And he's so basically he said, you're never going to make it. And my husband's there. He's going, holy shit. It's like, he's like, it was funny because it was like, there's all these people that are there wanting to ask questions. And there I am just like they do not exist. I am there getting his 100% attention, getting my information. Now, not like anything great came from that, but what came from that is like, just you practice that you are not going to be stopped. And that is valuable. So what happened from that was I went out there and I got all these relationships with banks. I started going to bank conferences. Okay, so I started going to bank conferences. I'm like, I got to meet bankers. And okay, these conferences are like $6,000. I'm like, I'm not going to spend $6,000 to go to the conferences. So I'm like, I'm just going to put on my business suit and crash them. So I went to the bank conferences. There, everybody's got the Lennards on. They're walking around, meeting each other. This is like for them, these bankers, this is like party time. So they're there to like party and have fun and learn some stuff, meet each other. So I'm there to meet them and to somehow figure out a way that I can buy these non-performing assets. So I go to the bar. I'm hanging out in the bar. And I got my business suit on. And I'm like, hey, so what bank do you work with? Oh, this bank. Oh, you work at this bank. Oh, okay. Well, what kind of non-performing assets do they have? Oh, well, we got this kind of stuff. Oh, okay. What kind of stuff they specialize? Okay, great. Well, who is your recovery manager? Is that the right person? Is that the right name? They're like, yeah. like, who's that? What's his name? Okay, is he here at the conference? Yeah, he is. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, okay? And I write it down. And I'm like, oh, by the way, that's your big binder for the conference? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, can I borrow that? They're like, sure. I take the binder. I go to the front desk, and these are Hiltons. These are like, super expensive places. And I'm like, can you copy this whole thing? And they're like, sure. They think I'm at the conference. So they copy the whole thing for me. And then I bring it back to them like, thank you so much. Now I got my copy. And they're like, okay, cool. They could give a shit. They're bank employees. They're managers, whatever. They don't care though. They're there to have a good time. I'm there. Hi. I'm there to get us something accomplished, to figure something out. And I don't even know what I'm doing, guys. So now I get my list of people that I know are at the conference and they're staying at that bank. And so now I go there and I get on the phone and I'm like, so and so, I'm here for the conference. Are you available to have our meeting at 12 o'clock noon? And they're like, who are you? I'm like, oh, my name's Janet Urban. I'm here to buy non performing assets and would love to meet you with you at 1 o'clock. I got that time free. And they're like, okay. They come down. I met with all these bankers. And they're like, who are you? And what do you want to buy? I'm like, oh, and I was just trying to figure it out myself. So and so I'm like, okay, so you guys do this. Okay, great. And how much is that? And what are the size of the pools? Okay. And I'm just trying to figure it out. And they're just like talking to me. But, they're bored, guys. Most people are bored. And they're just like, and I'm like, I also work in the film industry. They're like, oh, no, that's interesting. What do you do? You know? So now I got all these people that I've met with, their connections, and I go to this other conference. Still, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to conferences, I'm getting names of collections. I cannot buy any of this stuff. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm wasting their time, but I don't care, you know? And so now I go to this one conference and I meet somebody. They're like, you go to you crash bank conferences and you got all these connections and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what to do with them. I don't even know what I'm doing. And they're like, oh, well, come work with us. We will pay for you to go to these conferences. You can meet these people. You give us the assets. We'll teach you everything. We'll give you a percentage of our profits. And it's perfect. I'm like, sounds good to me. So I worked with these guys for years. We made millions of dollars together. And the reason why they started working with me was because I was willing to go out there and do it. And they're actually afraid to fly. They could not grow their business because they're afraid of flying. So I wasn't afraid to fly. Can you believe that? Isn't that funny? It's just a great story of like, you don't, that's against all rules, all odds, completely like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, but I know that what I'm doing is going to lead me somewhere good with the right people somehow. And it was embarrassing. Did not feel good. Sometimes I did not even want to leave my hotel room because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really want to be humiliated again. Or, it's just easier to stay in my hotel room. But then I'm like, if you do that, then you're not going to be the person that you want to be. And that's the most important thing here. It's not that you actually get like the results. It's that you are somebody that does not give up, that finds a way. I'm like, okay, that's my identity.
Darren, I just want to say that that was one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard for quite a long time. And what I've learned from that is that you just got to keep on knocking on doors and you've just got to keep on asking the right questions. And you just got to have that curiosity, that genuinity and curiosity to want to learn, that thirst to learn. It doesn't matter where it takes you. It's that learning drive makes things get into place because you know why. Inside, you know why you're doing this, and inside, you know how you can fit the jigsaw pieces together. But it's about that having that confidence and that drive, and that passion to get out there and just do things and just see life and experience life. What I've got to do. This is what I've got to move forwards.
I
Not be
felt
afraid.
so much fear. I felt it though. I still felt the fear, but I'm just like, the person I want to be is bigger than the fear. It's just got to be. I must. I must. That's the person I want to be. There's more to the story. You want to hear
Oh,
the
do tell.
you want to hear the really embarrassing part?
Yes.
Okay. So I went to this okay, so I had met these guys that wanted to do business with me, and they're like, uh, so I'm like, okay, send over the contract so that now we're going to be do business together. And they hadn't sent it over. They hadn't sent it over. And now I'm going to this bank conference in Scottsdale. Okay. Now this one was really high end, and it was right after 9/11. So it was all these top bank guys coming together in Scottsdale at this very luxury resort, and having these high level meetings. I didn't realize it was that high, but I figured, I don't know, it's a bank conference. So I'll go to it and probably whatever. I don't even, again, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to. I don't know what I'm crashing, but I'm going there. So I staying in my van. I'm like, I'm not going to spend $500 a night. I'm going to sleep in my van. I got a Eurovan, and it's got a nice bed in the back, so that's where I'm sleeping. And so I go to the big thing, and I go to the bar, and there's outdoor bars everywhere because it's like this golf course resort. And I'm talking to bankers, and they're just like they're just like, oh, you just like came to this thing, and I'm like, yeah, I just came here, and I did my thing with getting meetings, and they're like, well, you want to come out to lunch with us? I'm like, great. So I went to lunch with people, and like one guy was even like, do you want a job? Because we could actually really work with you. And I'm like, I already work in the industry, but thank you anyway. That's so nice of you. But I'm like, I had steak, I had wine. I'm like going out like there. It's like, my God, there's so much money here, and they have no problem like including me. Anyway, then I met this one guy was at this bank, and I had this meeting inside the hotel room, and I remember he was just like, I don't know really what you're doing here, but nice to meet you, I guess, you know? I'm like, oh, okay, nice to meet you too. He was kind of nice, but not really that nice. And anyway, so then that meeting ended, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, because that's how I was most of the time, because did not have representation, right? I didn't have a company yet. So then there was a big party that night, and so I'm like, of course I'm going to crash the party. That's what I do. And so I get in the side, I find a way in, I'm in there, I'm talking to this guy, I'm talking to all these people, I'm having a great time. Then I see that guy, and he's just like, Janet, um, oh, you're in the party. Okay, all right. Then he leaves. I didn't think anything of it. And then I'm like, I kind of felt a little weird, like maybe I should leave the party. It's because there's high-end people here. This is why. They don't know who I am. I'm causing concern. So as I'm walking down this hallway, I get this security guy, not security guy, this investigator, private investigator stops me. He's like, hey, stop. I'm like, yes, hi. He's like, so what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm going to the bank conference. But, this guy is trained on interviewing, like getting the truth. He's like, so where are you staying? I'm like, the Hampton Inn. And he's like, oh yeah, where's that? I'm like, just down the road. And he's like, yeah, right. And so he caught me in a lie. That's embarrassing. And I'm like, okay, I'm staying in my van. He's like, okay, where's your van? I'm like, oh, it's right over there. Okay, let's go to your van. I'm like, and they brought the cop cars. They searched my van. Yeah. I'm like, okay, fine, you can search it. Then I'm not gonna find anything. They're trying to look for guns or bomb, cop pot, anything that they can get me on. And of course, they don't find anything. I'm like, no, I'm just here. I'm just one of these people that is extremely motivated to do something with their life, and well, that's what you got on me. That's all you got. Except I wasn't smiling and laughing. No, I was humiliated, totally humiliated. And now I'm like, oh my God, these guys are not going to sign the contract with me. Um, you know, I just took it too far. I just felt so gross about myself. And then they're like, well, you can leave right now. And I'm like, and all these relationships I made, I'm like, that's like, you know, I, I hope that they're not going to hear about this. I hope nobody saw them surrounding me in the van, stories, blah, blah, blah. Great way to start your career, Janet. And I really started piling really bad emotions on myself. And I'm like, okay, now you're going to leave your tail between your legs, go back to LA. But you got a film shoot coming up this week, so that's okay. And then as I was driving back, I started feeling better. I'm like, you know what? That's a story. You know what? That's amazing you did that. That's cool. And You're not arrested. You don't have a misdemeanor. You don't have a felony. Nothing really happened other than you got your hand slapped. Now I got a hell of a story. People say on the film set, "What'd you do?" "Oh, I almost got arrested at a resort." What? You know? People in the film industry be like, "You're fucking crazy," but they like it. That's cool, right? Yeah. So that's my story. And so then I called my people that I had the contract with. I'm like, okay, I got to tell you what happened. And they're like, you are one crazy chick. They're like, yeah, we want to sign this contract with you. Hell yes. That's cool. That's amazing. That's like, of course, now we're going to pay for all your conferences. So you won't have to do that anymore. I'm like, oh, thank you. That'll be so much better.
That's amazing. Best story ever thus far.
The shining light in that story was that you actually had some adversity. Yes, you were somewhat compromised. Yes, but you saw it through, and they signed. You got the contract signed. It eventually got the contract signed. That is an achievement. Um, I know there's a learning curve to that achievement, but you know you've got to really see that it got you to the next point of where you wanted to what you wanted to do, and you wanted to get into contract to get the contract signed, and you got into these business events, and it worked. It worked out. That's what I'm trying to say. It worked out. Yeah, it was a bit of a very difficult learning curve, but it got you. You did it. You got there. You achieved that. I mean, there could have been better ways to do it, but the outcome is always stronger than the adversity, I think.
If you do the hardest thing, like that was hard, and then it's all downhill from there, you know? And I actually think it's kind of similar to what you guys are doing. You're going to feel like it's hard and you're going to be like, "Oh my god, I don't want to screw up and oh, what if they think of me?" I mean, that's a similarity there. And but then you realize and maybe you will have some people who are like, "Oh, that one's not going to work. I really can't see that happening," but it could happen. But then you'll just see that this is one in millions. Millions of people, millions of shows. It's like you will be fine. Just like this was like the top bankers in the whole US, but they're too high of a level for me anyway, and nobody's going to know the business I do with the recovery man. They're not going to know. It's not like it did not burn me at all.
Janet, I don't know if that's like the ultimate get a factor or what, but that's like boom. There's your motto. Get a factor. I did it like that. So you can too.
Yeah, you're like, well, she did it and she's successful, so I can do it. And by the way, this is somebody, remember, I have panic attacks, I have anxiety, I have, things I think are wrong with me. I have massive amounts of fear the entire time. I'm just dealing with it going forward anyway. So, I just, my desire was bigger than the fear and the anxiety and what I felt was wrong with me. And these things are still wired into me. I still get guys, I mean, I get nervous when I talk in front of you guys. I still do. It's just wired in me. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just and I see like Steven. Doesn't seem like he's got any fear whatsoever. I'm like, wow. I still have this fear. I've been teaching friends in film for 10 freaking years. I look at my house. I mean, this is a ridiculous place. You know?
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's all in spite of that, the anxiety, the things that I had. I'm just like, it's not going to stop me. I'm just going to become even more better because of these things.